They scheduled the meeting for 9 in the morning. I arrived at 8:50, 5 minutes early. Just enough to not seem anxious, but also not enough to give them the satisfaction of watching me walk in late. The conference room was on the 12th floor of a corporate building downtown. Tempered glass, city views, the kind of place designed to impress. My mother chose the location. She's always liked settings that made her look important. When I walked in, everyone was already there. My mother, Margaret, sitting with her back straight, wearing a pastel outfit she probably thought looked warm. She smiled when she saw me, that rehearsed smile she uses when she wants to appear understanding. My father, Stephen, beside her, fidgeting with his watch. He does that when he's nervous, adjusts the band, rotates the face, like it might stop time or make everything disappear. My sister, Rachel, arms crossed, looking at me like I was the reason we were all there. Her jaw was tight. She didn't want to be in that room any more than I did. And at the head of the table, a woman I'd never met in person. Dr. Ellen Corso, the family mediator my mother hired. 3 weeks ago, I found out about the meeting through email. Subject line: an opportunity for healing. My mother wrote 4 paragraphs, explaining why we needed to talk. She used words like restoration, forgiveness, and family. I didn't respond, but I showed up. Not because I believed anything would change. I showed up because I wanted them to see. I wanted them to see the man I'd become, the man who doesn't need their approval anymore. I sat at the far end of the table, far enough to make it clear I wasn't there as part of the group. Close enough that they couldn't say I was being hostile. Dr. Corso opened a leather notebook and looked at me with that trained, clinical look mediators use when they want to appear neutral. Thank you for coming, David, she said. I know this wasn't easy to arrange. I didn't respond. I just looked at the empty chair on the opposite end of the table. She followed my gaze and quickly returned her eyes to me. Before we begin, I'd like everyone to have a chance to speak, she continued. David, could you tell us, in your own words, what brought us to this point? I looked at her, without blinking. You already know. Silence. The room went quiet. That heavy kind of silence that only exists when people are avoiding the obvious. I'd like to hear it from you, she insisted. Then Yeshua asked 3 years ago. Rachel made a noise, something between a laugh and a sigh of frustration. See, this is what I mean. He acts like he's the victim, but he won't even. Rachel! Dr. Corso interrupted, raising her hand. Let's hold space for everyone. I leaned back in my chair, just enough to shift the weight in the room. I didn't ask for this meeting. We know, sweetheart, my mother said, and she touched Rachel's hand like she was calming a child. But we thought it would be good for all of us. You thought what? That hiring someone would make me forget. Her smile faltered, just for a second. But primera, sa W italiano. We're not asking you to forget. We're asking you to heal. Heal. That word again. Like healing was something they could give me. Like it was something they had the right to offer. I looked at the empty chair again. Then where is she? The room froze. My father cleared his throat. David, your aunt, couldn't make it today. She had 3 weeks' notice. She's dealing with a lot right now, okay? Rachel snapped. Not everything is about you. I felt my jaw tighten, the only visible crack in my composure. You're right, I said. It never was. What? Yeah? Dr. Corso wrote something in her notebook. My mother looked at my father. My father looked at the floor. David, Dr. Corso said, it sounds like there's a specific person you feel should be part of this conversation. I don't feel anything. I know. Can you elaborate? I finally broke my stillness. I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. I unfolded it slowly, deliberately, and placed it on the table. It was a printed email. Subject line: concerns about David's behavior. Urging my mother's face drained of color. This was sent to my employer 4 months ago. Unsigned. But the IP trace came back to Aunt Linda's home network. Rachel's arms uncrossed. You traced her IP? That's insane. No. Filing a false report with HR is insane. I just documented it. David, we didn't know. You knew. The words landed like stones. You knew because I told you. I forwarded the email. I asked if anyone in the family had contacted my workplace. You said no. My father shifted in his chair. We didn't think Linda would. You didn't think. Or you didn't care. Dr. Corso raised her hand gently. David, I hear you. But let's try to stay solution-focused. What would accountability look like for you? I looked back at the empty chair. It would look like her sitting in that chair. She's not ready. David, my mother said. Then neither am I. I stood up. The entire room tensed. David, we still have 40 minutes. I stayed for 10. That's more than she gave me. I pushed my chair in. Smooth. Controlled dot. My mother rose halfway. Please, just sit down. We can work through this. I looked at her. Not with anger, but with something colder, clarity. You can't work through what you won't name. I started walking toward the door. Rachel stood up abruptly. So that's it? You're just going to walk out? Again. I paused at the threshold. I didn't turn around. I've been walking out for 3 years, Rachel. You just started noticing. I left. The door closed behind me with a soft click. I didn't slam it. I didn't shout. I just closed it. And in the silent hallway, walking toward the elevator, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Controlled they wanted healing, but they weren't willing to name the wound. They wanted reconciliation, but not without the person who caused the break. And me, I wanted something much simpler. I wanted them to stop pretending. The elevator ride down felt longer than it should have. 12 floors, maybe 30 seconds. But in that enclosed space, with nothing but my reflection staring back at me in the polished steel doors, it felt like an hour. I looked different than I did 3 years ago. Not physically. I mean, sure, I'd lost some weight. Started going to the gym more consistently. But that wasn't it. It was my eyes 3 years ago. My eyes still held something. Hope. Maybe. Or desperation. The belief that if I just explained myself clearly enough, if I just showed them the evidence, if I just made them understand, they would see the truth. Now, my eyes were empty of that. Not broken. Not defeated. Just done. Da. The elevator chimed. Ground floor. I stepped out into the marble lobby and walked past the security desk without looking back. The morning sun hit me as I pushed through the revolving doors, and for a moment, I had to squint. My phone buzzed. Before I even reached my car. Mom, Dad, I didn't open it. I already knew what it said. Some variation of please come back. Or, we can't do this without you. Or my personal favorite, you're tearing this family apart. That last one always made me laugh, as if I was the one who broke anything. I got in my car and sat there for a minute, just breathing, just existing in the quiet. 3 years ago, I would have been shaking right now. My hands would have been trembling on the steering wheel. My chest would have been tight. I would have been running the conversation over and over in my head, analyzing every word, every pause, trying to figure out what I could have said differently. But today, nothing. Just calm. I started the engine and pulled out of the parking garage. My phone buzzed again. Rachel, this time then my father. I put the phone on silent and dropped it in the cup holder. I wasn't ignoring them out of spite. I was ignoring them because there was nothing left to say. The meeting proved what I already knew. They didn't want accountability. They wanted compliance. They wanted me to sit in that room, not alone, accept some watered-down apology that never actually named what happened, and then go back to being the son, the brother, the nephew who just let things slide. But I stopped sliding 3 years ago. The office was quiet when I arrived. It was Saturday, so most people weren't in, just me and a few others who preferred working without the usual noise. I liked it this way. No small talk. No questions about my weekend. No one asking if I was okay. I grabbed a coffee from the break room and headed to my desk. My computer screen lit up as I sat down. 43 unread emails. Most of them routine. A few flagged as urgent, which usually meant they weren't. I opened my task list and got to work. This was my reset, my anchor. While my family was spiraling, trying to manage narratives and control perceptions, I was here, doing the work, showing up, being consistent. That's the thing they never understood. They thought my silence was weakness. They thought my absence was avoidance. But at Boas in single quotes T. It was strategy. Every time they sent a text, I didn't answer. Every time they called and I let it go to voicemail. Every time they scheduled a family meeting I didn't attend, I was making a choice. I was choosing not to participate in their performance. Because that's what it was, a performance. My mother's concern, my father's confusion, Rachel's frustration. All of it was theater. Real concern would have looked different. Real concern would have shown up 3 years ago when I first told them what Aunt Linda had done. Real concern would have resulted in consequences, boundaries, accountability. But instead, they chose comfort. They chose to keep the peace, to not make waves, to let things blow over. And when I refused to blow over with them, I became the problem. Around noon, my phone lit up again. This time it wasn't a text. It was a call. Dacto. Corso. I stared at the screen for a moment, then declined it. 30 seconds later, a voicemail notification appeared. I didn't listen to it, but I could guess what it said. Something about unfinished business or the importance of closure, or maybe even a subtle suggestion that my unwillingness to engage was part of the problem. Mediators love that phrase. Part of the problem. It's a way of distributing blame without actually examining who did what. It's the emotional equivalent of saying both sides. When one side is clearly lying. By 2 in the afternoon, my inbox had a new message. Subject line. From your mother. Please read. I hovered over it for a second, then opened it. David, I know you're upset. I know today didn't go the way any of us hoped, but walking out didn't solve anything. It just made things harder. Yurin is going through a difficult time right now. She's dealing with her own struggles, and I don't think it's fair to demand that she'll be present when she's not in a good place, mentally or emotionally. We're trying to move forward as a family. We're trying to heal. But we can't do that if you keep pulling away. I love you. Your father loves you. Rachel loves you. We all want what's best for you. But you have to meet us halfway. Please call me when you're ready to talk. Love. Mama, I read it twice. Then I closed it. There it was. The entire problem, condensed into 7 paragraphs. Your aunt is going through a difficult time. Not your aunt did something wrong. Not your auntie needs to apologize. Just, she's struggling. As if her struggle absolved her of responsibility. You have to meet us halfway, as if I hadn't been meeting them for years. As if I hadn't tried to explain, to show evidence, to ask for basic acknowledgement. As if halfway wasn't already behind me, leaned back in my chair and stared at the ceiling. This was the pattern. This was always the pattern. Something happens. I react. They minimize. Pushback. They accuse me of not letting it go. And the cycle continues until I'm the one who looks unreasonable. But here's what they didn't understand. I wasn't trying to look reasonable anymore. I was trying to be free. That evening, I got a text from an unknown number. This is Dr. Corso. I wanted to follow up on today's session. I think there's still an opportunity for meaningful dialogue, if you're willing to try again. Your family is hurting, and I believe you are too. Let's not let this moment pass without trying to bridge the gap. Please reach out when you're ready. I read it once. Then I blocked the number. Not out of anger, not out of spite, but because I knew what meaningful dialogue meant in tease. Context that it meant to me showing up. Again. Sitting in a room. Again. Listening to the same excuses. Again, and at the end of it, being told that my feelings were valid but my response was disproportionate. I'd played that game before. I wasn't playing it anymore. Later that night, lying in bed, I thought about the empty chair. That chair wasn't just a symbol of my aunt's absence. It was a symbol of everything they refused to confront, every boundary they crossed, every lie they ignored, every time they chose comfort over truth. That chair represented the fact that they wanted resolution without reckoning, and I wasn't going to give them that. Not ever. I closed my eyes and felt the weight of the day settle into my bones. But it wasn't a heavy weight. It was the weight of certainty. I'd made my choice, and I was walking away. Not in anger, in pain, but in clarity. Quiet revenge. Episode 16. The Empty Chair. Block 03, The Ripple Effect, 7,000 characters. Sunday morning came with silence. No texts. No calls. No emails with subject lines begging me to reconsider. For the first time in 3 weeks, my phone was quiet. I made coffee and sat on my balcony, watching the city wake up. The sun was just starting to clear the buildings across the street, casting long shadows on the pavement below. It was peaceful, and that peace felt earned. Thought about what Dr. Corso had said. Your family is hurting. She was right. They probably were. But here's what she didn't say. Here's what none of them ever said. I was hurting too. 3 years ago, when Aunt Linda spread rumors about me at a family wedding, when she told people I was unstable, when she painted me as the problem in front of cousins, uncles, extended family who barely knew me, I was hurting then. When I confronted her, and she laughed it off. When my mother said I was being too sensitive. When my father told me to just let it go because she's family. I was hurting then too, when Linda sent that email to my employer, trying to get me fired. When she fabricated concerns about my behavior and my mental state. When she weaponized her relationship with my family to destroy my career. I was drowning then. But no one scheduled a mediation session for that. No one hired Dr. Corso to sit us down and talk about accountability. No one sent me emails with subject lines about healing and moving forward. They waited. They waited until I stopped responding, until I stopped showing up, until my absence became loud enough that it made them uncomfortable. And then only then did it become a problem worth addressing. Not because I was hurting, but because my silence was disruptive. By noon, the quiet broke. A text from my cousin, Eric. We hadn't spoken in over a year. A man heard about yesterday. Good? I stared at the message. Eric wasn't close to the situation. He lived 2 states away and only came around for major holidays. But the fact that he was reaching out meant one thing. The family was talking, which meant my mother was talking. Which meant the narrative was already being written, primera typed out. Response? I'm fine. Thanks for checking in. Short. Neutral. No details. 3 dots appeared immediately. Was typing. Mom said you walked out of some kind of family therapy thing. Said everyone's pretty worried about you. There I was, worried. Not confused about what happened. Not trying to understand your side. Just worried. As if I was the one having a breakdown. I set the phone down and took a breath. This was the playbook. This was always the playbook. Step 1. Frame my boundaries as instability. Step 2. Spread concern among extended family. Step 3. Position themselves as the reasonable ones trying to help. Step 4. Wait for enough people to ask me what's wrong that I either break and engage, or look like the bad guy for staying silent. I'd seen it before. After the wedding incident, my mother spent weeks calling relatives, telling them she was worried about David, not mentioning what Linda had done, just expressing concern, planting seeds. By the time I tried to explain what actually happened, half the family had already decided I was overreacting. I wasn't letting that happen again. I picked up my phone and typed, "I walked out because the person who caused the problem wasn't there. I'm not interested in meetings that avoid accountability. I'm good, though. Appreciate you reaching out." I hit send before I could second guess it. 3 dots appeared again. Then, stop, then appeared again. Finally, a response. "Fair enough. Just wanted to make sure you're all right. Let me know if you need anything." "Will do." I set the phone down and exhaled. That was one conversation handled. But I knew there would be more. Monday morning, I was back in the office. My manager, Karen, stopped by my desk around 10. "David, you got a minute?" I looked up from my screen. "Sure. What's up?" She glanced around, then lowered her voice slightly. "Did you have any unusual contact over the weekend? Anything work-related that seemed off?" My stomach tightened. "What kind of contact?" "Someone called the office Friday evening, asked to speak to HR about you. Didn't leave a name. Just said they had concerns and wanted to know who they should talk to." I felt my jaw clench. "Did they say what kind of concerns?" "No. And HR didn't engage. We have protocols for this kind of thing. But I wanted to give you a heads up in case it happens again." I nodded slowly. "Thanks for letting me know." Karen hesitated. "Is everything okay? I mean, you don't have to tell me details. But is someone trying to cause problems for you?" I met her eyes. "Yes, but I'm handling it." She studied my face for a moment, then nodded. "All right, just keep me in the loop if anything escalates. And for what it's worth, your work speaks for itself. No anonymous phone call is going to change that. Appreciate it." She walked away, and I sat there, staring at my screen. Linda it had to be. She'd done it before, 4 months ago. The email, and now, after I refused to sit in a room and pretend everything was fine, she was trying again. This wasn't about concern. This was retaliation. I opened a new document on my computer and started typing. Date. Time. Karen's report. Details. Documentation. Because here's what I learned over the past 3 years. When people try to destroy your credibility, the only defense is a paper trail. Every incident, every attempt to sabotage, I wrote it all down. Not because I was planning to sue, not because I was building a legal case, but because I needed proof that I wasn't crazy, that this wasn't in my head, that the pattern was real. That evening, my phone buzzed. Rachel. "Mom's really upset. You didn't have to be so cold on Saturday." I read the message 3 times. Cold. That word. I'd heard it before, after the wedding. After I stopped coming to family dinners, after I set boundaries. Cold, as if warmth meant letting people walk all over you, as if kindness required you to accept disrespect. I typed a response. "I wasn't cold. Primera joie. Is it clear? There's a difference. 3 dots. Then, you're really going to throw away this whole family over one argument?" I stared at the screen. 1 argument. 3 years of manipulation and sabotage, reduced to 1 argument. E didn't respond. I just put the phone face down on the table and went back to what I was doing. Because that's the thing about quiet revenge. It's not about the last word. It's about the refusal to engage. Every text I didn't answer. Every call I didn't return. Every invitation I declined. Each one was a brick in the wall, was building not to keep them out, but to keep myself protected. Later that night, I checked my email one last time before bed. One new message from an address I didn't recognize. Subject line, "You can't hide forever." I opened it. "You think you're so smart, walking away like that. You think you're better than everyone. But people see through you, David. They know what you really are. And sooner or later, everyone's going to see it too. You can't run forever. No signature." But I didn't need one. I knew exactly who it was from. I closed the email, marked it as spam, and forwarded it to a folder I'd created months ago. Evident, 53 emails now, all from different addresses. All with the same tone, all from her. I didn't respond. I never responded. Because responding was what she wanted. She wanted me angry. She wanted me defensive. She wanted me to explode so she could point to my reaction as proof that I was the problem. But I wasn't giving her that. Was giving her nothing. Just silence, just documentation, just the slow, steady realization that her words had no power anymore. I closed my laptop and turned off the lights. Tomorrow, I'd go back to work. I'd do my job. I'd be professional, consistent, reliable. And while my family scrambled to manage the narrative, I'd be building something they couldn't touch. A life that didn't need their approval. A reputation that didn't depend on their validation. A peace that existed entirely outside their chaos. It was the quiet revenge, not the explosion. The exit. Tuesday started like any other day. Alarm at 6, gym by 6:30, office by 8. Routine was my foundation now, the thing that kept me grounded when everything else tried to pull me under. I'd learned that the hard way. 3 years ago, when everything first fell apart, I didn't have routine. Primera de chars. I had sleepless nights replaying conversations. I had anxiety attacks in parking lots. I had days where getting out of bed felt impossible. But I learned something during that time. Chaos loves company. And the moment you refuse to be chaotic, moment you become calm, consistent. Predictable chaos has nowhere to go. It just exhausts itself. So that's what I did. I became boring not in my life, not in my work, but in my response to them. Every provocation met with silence. Every accusation met with documentation. Every attempt to drag me into drama met with professional distance. It wasn't exciting. It wasn't satisfying in the way confrontation might be, but it was effective. Around 9, I got an email from HR subject line. Follow-up. External inquiry. I opened it. David, this is a follow-up to the phone call we received Friday evening. We want to assure you that we take employee privacy and workplace integrity very seriously. The caller did not provide sufficient identifying information, and we did not disclose any details about your employment. Per company policy, we've logged the incident and flagged your file to alert us. If any similar contacts occur, if you have reason to believe this is part of a pattern of harassment, we encourage you to document it and consider filing a formal complaint with local authorities. Please, don't hesitate to reach out if you have questions or concerns. Best, Jennifer Martin's HR director. I read it twice, then saved it to my evidence folder. 40-7th document. I'd been keeping track of everything for 2 years now. Every email, every text, every witness statement from people who'd heard Linda say things about me that weren't true. I wasn't planning to use it yet. But I was ready if I needed to. That's the thing people don't understand about quiet revenge. It's not passive. It's not weak. It's strategic. You don't react in the moment. You collect. You document. You wait. And when the time comes, if it ever comes, you don't need to raise your voice. You just present the facts. At lunch, I met with my friend Jason. We'd known each other since college. He was one of the few people who knew the full story. One of the few people I trusted enough to talk to. We grabbed sandwiches from a deli near the office and sat in a park a few blocks away. So, Jason said, unwrapping his sandwich, "How'd it go on Saturday?" "About how you'd expect. That bad. She wasn't there." Jason stopped mid-bite. "Linda?" "Yep." "Are you serious?" "Dead serious. They scheduled a whole family mediation, hired a professional, got everyone in a room, but the person who actually caused the problem, conveniently absent." Jason shook his head. "That's insane. That's my family." We ate in silence for a moment. "So what did you do?" he asked. "I left." "Good." "My mom thinks I'm being unreasonable." Jason scoffed. "Of course she does. Because holding people accountable is divisive." He said the last word, with air quotes, mocking the tone my mother always used. I smiled, despite myself. "You know what the worst part is?" I said. "What?" "They actually think they're trying. They think hiring a mediator and scheduling a meeting is the same thing as addressing the problem. Like showing up is enough. Like my presence alone is supposed to fix everything." "But you didn't show up to fix anything," Jason said. "No. I showed up to see if they would. And they didn't." Jason leaned back on the bench and looked at the sky. "You know what I don't get?" he said. "What?" "Why do they care so much now? Like, they ignored you for 3 years. They didn't care when Linda was spreading lies. They didn't care when she tried to get you fired. But now that you're not engaging, suddenly it's a crisis." I thought about that for a second. "It's not about me," I said. "It's about them." "What do you mean?" "As long as I was reacting, getting upset, trying to defend myself, asking them to intervene, I was the problem. I was the one causing drama. But now that I'm quiet, now that I'm just absent, they can't blame me anymore. My silence makes them look at themselves. And they don't like what they see." Jason nodded slowly. "So they're trying to pull you back in." "Exactly. Exactly. Because if I come back, if I sit in that room and participate in their version of healing, they get to feel like good people again. They get to say, they tried. They get to go back to pretending everything's fine. But you're not giving them that?" "No. I'm not." Jason smiled. "Good, That afternoon, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. I let it go to voicemail. 10 minutes later, I checked the message. A woman's voice. Polite. Professional. "Hi, David. This is Amanda Pearson. I'm a friend of your aunt. Linda, she asked me to reach out to you because she's been having trouble getting in touch. She wanted me to let you know that she'd really like to talk, and she's sorry if there's been any miscommunication. If you could give her a call when you get a chance, I think it would mean a lot to her. Thanks." I deleted the message. Miscommunication. That word, as if what happened between us was just a misunderstanding. As if it was a matter of crossed wires and unclear signals. Not lies. Not sabotaged. Not a deliberate campaign to destroy my reputation. Just miscommunication. I wasn't falling for it. This was a test. Linda was using a proxy to see if I'd respond. To see if she could get around the walls I'd built by going through someone. I didn't know. But I'd seen this move before. After the wedding, she'd used my cousin to check in on me. After the email to my employer, she'd had a family friend reach out to say she was concerned. It was always the same pattern. Use someone else to make the approach. Frame herself as the victim. Offer a vague apology that didn't actually acknowledge what she did. And if I engaged, she'd use that engagement to claim we'd worked things out. Not this time. I blocked the number and went back to work. That evening, I stopped by the gym on my way home. I needed to clear my head. Needed to burn off the frustration that had been building all day. I hit the weights harder than usual, pushed through an extra set. Stayed longer than I planned. By the time I left, my muscles were screaming, but my mind was quiet. That's what physical exhaustion does. It silences the noise. I drove home in silence. No music. No podcasts. Just the hum of the engine and the sound of my own breathing. When I got home, I found an envelope taped to my door. No postage. No return address. Just my name written in handwriting I recognized immediately. Linda's eyes stood there for a moment, staring at Italiano. Part of me wanted to rip it up without opening it. But the other part, the part that had learned to document everything new, I needed to see what was inside. I unlocked my door, went inside, and sat down at my kitchen table. I opened the envelope carefully, preserving it in case I needed it later. Inside was a single handwritten letter. David, I know you're angry with me. I know you think I did something terrible, but I need you to understand that I was only trying to help. When I reached out to your employer, it was because I was genuinely worried about you. You weren't answering calls. You weren't coming to family events. You seemed distant and disconnected. I thought if someone at your work checked in on you, they might be able to help in a way the family couldn't. I never meant to hurt you. I never meant to cause problems. I was acting out of love. I know you don't believe that right now, but I hope one day you'll understand. I miss you. We all miss you. Please come home. Aunt Linda read it 3 times. Then I folded it carefully, put it back in the envelope, and filed it in my evidence. Folder. Because that letter wasn't an apology, it was a rewrite. She wasn't sorry for what she did. She was sorry I wouldn't let her get away with it. And the fact that she delivered it by hand, came to my home, found my address, left it on my door wasn't reconciliation. It was intimidation. Reminder that she knew where I lived. I sat there for a long time, staring at the folder. 40-8 documents now. 48 pieces of evidence that I wasn't crazy, that this was real, that my silence wasn't cruelty, it was survival. Wednesday morning, I woke up to 17 missed calls. All from my mother. I sat up in bed and stared at my phone. 17 calls between midnight and 6 a.m. Something had happened. I didn't call back immediately. Instead, I got up, made coffee, and gave myself time to prepare for whatever was coming. Because with my family, there was always something coming. At 7, I finally called. My mother answered on the first ring. David. Oh, thank God. Her voice was strained, shaky. What's wrong? I asked, keeping my tone neutral. It's your aunt. She's in the hospital. I felt my chest tighten, but I kept my voice steady. What happened? Say. She had some kind of episode last night. Anxiety attack. They think. She couldn't breathe. Your uncle called an ambulance. I closed my eyes. Is she okay? She's stable now. But, David, my mother's voice cracked. She kept saying your name, over and over. She's been so stressed about everything that's happened between you two. The doctors think that's what triggered it. And there it was. The hook, the guilt, the implication that somehow my absence had put her in the hospital. I took a slow breath. Mom, I'm sorry she's not well, but her anxiety isn't my responsibility. Silenced on the other end. Then, quietly, how can you say that? She's family. So am I. That's not... She stopped herself. David, she needs you right now. We all do. Can you please just come to the hospital? Just for an hour. Just to show her you care. I looked out my window at the city waking up below. Is she asking for me? What? You said she kept saying my name. Is she asking to see me? Or are you asking? Another pause. I'm asking. As your mother. I'm asking you to do the right thing. The right thing, Mom. The right thing would have been for her to not contact my employer. The right thing would have been for her to not spread lies about me. The right thing would have been for someone in this family to hold her accountable instead of expecting me to just move on. David, I hope she's okay. Primera rea. Ido. But I'm not coming to the hospital. You're really going to do this? Your aunt is lying in a hospital bed, and you're going to hold a grudge. I felt anger flash through me, but I kept my voice level. It's not a grudge. It's a boundary. It's cruel. No, Mom. What's cruel is using someone's medical emergency to manipulate me into doing what you want. She gasped. I am not manipulating you. I'm trying to keep this family together by making me responsible for everyone else's emotions. By asking you to be compassionate. I am compassionate. I'm just not compliant. There's a difference. E could hear her breathing on the other end. Fast. Shallow. E, don't know who you've become, she said. Finally, I've become someone who doesn't accept blame for things I didn't. Though, I'm fine. Her voice went cold. Don't. Come. But don't expect us to keep reaching out when you make it clear you don't care about anyone but yourself. She hung up. I stood there, holding the phone, feeling the weight of that conversation settle into my bones. This was the cost. This was what it meant to hold the line. I got to work an hour later. Karen was waiting at my desk. Hey, Can we talk in my office? My stomach dropped, but I nodded. We walked to her office in silence. She closed the door behind us and gestured for me to sit. I got another call, she said. This morning, around a different person this time, said they were a family member and needed to speak with me urgently about your situation. I felt my jaw tighten. What did they say? They said you were under a lot of stress, that you'd been isolating yourself from family, that they were concerned about your mental health, and wanted to know if we'd noticed any changes in your behavior at work. I closed my eyes. What did you tell them? I told them I couldn't discuss employee matters with unauthorized individuals, and ended the call. I exhaled. Thank you. Karen leaned forward. David, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me. Okay, are you safe? I looked at her. What? These calls. Pattern. The escalation. It feels like harassment, and I need to know if you're in danger. I'm not in danger. Are you sure? Because if someone in your family's, I'm fine, I said, cutting her off gently. This isn't about violence. It's about control. They're trying to discredit me because I stopped engaging with them. And when emotional manipulation didn't work, they moved to professional sabotage. Karen studied my face. Have you considered getting a restraining order? I've thought about it. But that would give them exactly what they want. Reaction. Proof that I'm unstable or overreacting. Right now, the only thing I have is my composure. If I escalate legally, they'll use that against me. Karen sat back in her chair. That they say, incredibly calculated. It has to be. She nodded slowly. All right. Well, for what it's worth, I've documented both calls, and if they contact us again, I'm escalating it to legal. You shouldn't have to deal with this. I appreciate that. And, David? Yeah. Your performance here has been flawless. Whatever they're saying about you, it doesn't match the person I see every day. Don't forget that I felt something tighten in my chest. Not anxiety. Gratitude. Thank you. At lunch, I didn't leave the office. I stayed at my desk and opened the letter Linda had left on my door. I read it again, slowly this time. I was only trying to help. E was acting out of love. I never meant to hurt you. Every sentence was a denial of responsibility. Every word was a reframe. She wasn't apologizing for what she did. She was explaining why it wasn't wrong, And that letter delivered by until my home wasn't an olive branch. It was a threat. She knew where I lived. She could show up whenever she wanted. And if I didn't respond, who knows what she'd do next. I pulled out my phone and took a photo of the letter. Then I sent it to my lawyer. Yes, I had a lawyer now. I'd hired him 6 months ago when the emails started getting more aggressive, when Linda's anonymous messages turned into direct threats. He'd advised me to document everything, to avoid direct contact, to let her exhaust herself. People like this, he'd said, they expect you to break, and when you don't, they break instead. So that's what I was doing. Not breaking, just waiting. That evening, my phone buzzed. Rachel, Mom told me you refused to visit Aunt Linda. What is wrong with you? I stared at the message. Then I typed, nothing is wrong with me. I just don't owe her my presence. 3 dots appeared immediately. She's in the hospital. She could barely breathe. And you're seriously going to act like she deserves this? I didn't put her in the hospital. Her choices did. You're unbelievable. Maybe. But I'm consistent. The dots appeared and disappeared 3 times. Finally. You know what? Fine. Stay away. We don't need you anyway. We'll take care of each other like we always have. I read that last line twice. Like we always have. As if they'd ever taken care of me. As if I was the one who abandoned them, and not the other way around. I didn't respond. I just set my phone down and went back to what I was doing. Because that's the thing about quiet revenge. It's not about having the last word. It's about refusing to play. Later that night, I get an email from my cousin Eric. Subject line, real talk, David. I'm not trying to pile on. I just want to understand what's happening. Mom's saying you're refusing to see Aunt Linda, even though she's in the hospital. Rachel's saying you've cut off the whole family. Your mom's saying you've changed, but I've known you a long time, and you're not the type to just flip on people for no reason. So, what's really going on? I'm not asking you to justify yourself. I'm just asking for the truth. Because, right now, the only story I'm hearing is theirs. Eric, I read it 3 times. Then I started typing. Not because I needed to defend myself, but because, for the first time in 3 years, someone was actually asking. I stared at Eric's email for a long time before I started typing. This was the moment I'd been avoiding for 3 years. Not because I was afraid of telling the truth, but because I knew what happened when you told the truth in my family. You became the problem. But Eric was asking, really asking, not with accusations or but with genuine curiosity. So I decided to tell him all of it. Eric, I appreciate you reaching out, and I appreciate that you're asking instead of assuming. Here's what happened. 3 years ago, at Uncle Tom's wedding, Aunt Linda got drunk and started telling people I was mentally unstable. She told them I'd been in therapy, which was true, but private. She told them I'd been fired from a job, not true. She told them I was borrowing money from Mom and Dad, also not true. I didn't hear about any of this until weeks later when a cousin mentioned it to me. When I confronted Linda, she laughed it off, said she was just concerned and was trying to get other family members to check in on me. I asked Mom and Dad to address it. They told me Linda was going through a tough time and I should let it go. So, primera did. I let it go, Dad. Then, about 6 months later, Linda started sending anonymous emails to my work. She fabricated concerns about my behavior, my mental health, my reliability. My employer investigated and found nothing, but the damage was done. I spent months rebuilding trust with my manager. I traced the emails back to Linda's IP address. I showed Mom and Dad. They said I was overreacting and that Linda would never do something like that. I stopped going to family events after that, not out of spite, but out of self-preservation. And for 2 years, no one checked in. No one asked why I wasn't showing up. They just assumed I was being difficult. 3 weeks ago, Mom hired a family mediator and scheduled a session. She told me it was time to heal and move forward. I agreed to come. But when I showed up, Linda wasn't there. The person who caused all of this, the person who lied about me, sabotaged my career, and never once apologized, wasn't there. I asked why. Mom said Linda wasn't ready, so I left. Not because I don't care about family, but because I refuse to participate in a reconciliation that doesn't include accountability. Since then, Linda has continued to contact my workplace. She left a letter at my apartment, and now, apparently, she's in the hospital. And somehow that's my fault too. That's the truth, Eric. I'm not the one who flipped. I'm the one who finally stopped accepting unacceptable behavior. If that makes me the bad guy in their story, I can live with that. David, I read it over twice, then hit send before I could second-guess myself. 3 minutes later, my phone buzzed. Eric was calling. I answered. Hey. Holy shit, Eric said. Yeah. I had no idea. No one told me any of that. I know. They're saying you just woke. Hawaii, that you cut everyone off for no reason. Of course they are. Eric was quiet for a moment. Do you have proof? Of the emails, I mean. I have everything. Emails. Documentation from HR. All of it. And they still won't hold her accountable. No. Because holding her accountable would mean admitting they were wrong. And they'd rather lose me than admit that. I heard Eric exhale on the other end. Man, I'm sorry. I didn't know. It's okay. You weren't supposed to. That's how this works. They control the narrative, and anyone who questions it gets shut down. Well, for what it's worth, I believe you. I felt something loosen in my chest. Thanks. What are you going to do? Nothing. Nothing. I'm going to keep living my life. Keep working. Keep my distance, and let them figure out their own mess. You're not going to defend yourself. To who? The people who already decided I'm the problem. There's no point. There's no point. The only people whose opinions matter are the ones who actually ask for the truth, like you just did. Eric was quiet again. Tatesi. Really mature, actually. I laughed, despite myself. It's not maturity. It's exhaustion. I tried defending myself for 2 years. It didn't work. So now, I'm just opting out. Is that why you didn't go to the hospital? Partly. But also because Linda's anxiety attack isn't my responsibility. She's spent 3 years trying to destroy my reputation. I'm not going to show up and pretend everything's fine just because she's having a hard time. Fair. We talked for another 20 minutes. About work. About life. About anything other than the family drama. And when we hung up, I felt lighter. Not because I'd convinced him. I was right. But because someone had finally asked for my side. Thursday morning, I got a text from my father. Your mother is very upset. I think you need to apologize. I read it 3 times. Apologized, for what? For not going to the hospital. For setting boundaries. For refusing to enable the same behavior that had caused all of this in the first place. I typed back. I'm not apologizing for protecting myself. 3 dots appeared. Then disappeared. Then appeared again. Finally, this is tearing the family apart. No, Dad. The family was already torn apart. I'm just the only one willing to acknowledge it. No response. That afternoon, I got a call from an unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something told me I should. Hello, David. This is Dr. Corso. Do you have a moment? I sighed. What can I do for you? I wanted to follow up after Saturday's session. I know it didn't go the way anyone hoped, but I still believe there's an opportunity here for meaningful progress. With all due respect, Dr. Corso, there's no progress to be made when the person who caused the problem isn't in the room. I understand your frustration. But healing isn't always linear. Sometimes we have to work with who's available, not who we wish was there. That's not healing. That's enabling. She paused. I can see you have strong feelings about this. I have clear boundaries. There's a difference. David, your family is genuinely worried about you. No, they're worried about how my absence makes them look. Another pause. That is a very cynical way of viewing it. It's a very accurate way of viewing it. What would it take for you to consider coming back to the table? Linda. In the room, taking accountability. That's it. And if she's not ready for that, then neither am I. Dr. Corso sighed. I can't force anyone to do anything, but I hope you'll reconsider. Sometimes taking the first step, even when it feels unfair, can create the space for others to follow. I took the first step 3 years ago when I tried to address this with my family. They didn't follow. I'm not taking another step. All right. Well, I hope you'll reach out if you change your mind. I won't. But thank you for trying. I hung up, and I felt nothing. No guilt, no doubt, no second guessing. Just clarity. That evening, I opened my laptop and looked at the evidence folder. 48 documents. 3 years of lies, manipulation, and sabotage, all meticulously documented. I'd kept it all just in case I needed to defend myself, just in case someone accused me of lying. But looking at it now, I realized something. I didn't need it. Because the people who mattered, the people who actually cared about the truth were the ones who asked. Like Eric, like Karen, like Jason. And the people who didn't ask, the people who just assumed I was the problem, those people were never going to believe me anyway. No amount of evidence would change their minds, because they didn't want the truth. They wanted the version of the story that let them feel comfortable. So I closed the folder. Not because I was deleting it, but because I was done needing to prove myself. Later that night, I got one final message from my mother. I don't know what happened to you, David. You used to be such a kind, loving person. Now you're just cold and distant. I hope one day you'll realize what you've lost. I read it once. Then I set my phone down and went to bed. Because she was right about one thing. I had changed. I used to be the person who bent over backward to keep everyone happy, who absorbed blame that wasn't mine, who'd sacrificed my own peace for the sake of family harmony. But that person was exhausted. That person was breaking. So I became someone else. Someone who said no. Someone who walked away. Someone who chose himself. And if that made me cold, so be it. I'd rather be cold and whole than warm and broken.
Friday came quietly. No calls. No texts. No emails begging me to reconsider. Just silence. And for the first time in 3 years, that silence didn't feel like abandonment. It felt like peace. I went to work. Did my job. Had lunch with Jason. Came home and cooked dinner. Normal things. Boring things. The kind of things that don't make for dramatic stories but make for a stable life. And somewhere in the middle of that ordinary day, I realized something. I'd won. Not because I'd proven them wrong. Not because they'd apologized. Not because justice had been served or accountability had been taken. I'd won because I was free. Free from the constant anxiety of waiting for the next attack. Free from the exhausting work of managing other people's emotions. Free from the belief that I owed anyone access to my life just because we shared DNA. That was the quiet revenge. Not the destruction of my enemies. But the construction of a life they couldn't touch. That evening, I sat on my balcony with a glass of whiskey and watched the sunset. My phone was on silent. My laptop was closed. There was nothing demanding my attention. Just me, the sky, and the city humming below. I thought about the empty chair. That chair in the conference room that should have held Linda but didn't. For weeks, I'd been angry about it. Frustrated. Hurt. But now, looking back, I realized that empty chair was the most honest thing in that room. It represented exactly what my family was offering me. Nothing. No accountability. No truth. No real change. Just the performance of reconciliation without any of the substance. And by walking out, I'd refuse to participate in that performance. I'd refuse to sit there and pretend that showing up was enough. I'd refuse to let them rewrite history. And that refusal, that simple act of standing up and leaving, had cost me everything. My relationship with my parents. My sister. Most of my extended family. The comfort of belonging to something bigger than myself. But it had also given me something. Myself. My integrity. My peace. And I realized, sitting there on that balcony, that it was a fair trade. Around 8, my phone buzzed. I almost didn't check it. But curiosity got the better of me. It was Eric. Hey man. Just wanted to check in. How are you holding up? I smiled. I'm good. Actually good. Good to hear. Listen, I talked to a few other cousins. Told them what you told me. Not everyone believes it, but some people are starting to ask questions. I felt something stir in my chest. Not hope, exactly. But something close. I appreciate that. But you don't have to fight my battles. I'm not fighting your battles. I'm just telling the truth. What they do with it is up to them. Fair enough. For what it's worth, I think you did the right thing. Walking out of that meeting. Not going to the hospital. All of it. Thanks. That means a lot. You doing anything this weekend? Not really. Why? Want to grab a beer? Just hang out. No family drama. Just two guys catching up. I looked out at the city one more time. Yeah. I'd like that. Cool. I'll text you tomorrow with a time. Sounds good. We said goodbye, and I set the phone down. And I realized something else. I hadn't lost my family. I'd lost people who were never really family to begin with. Because family doesn't ask you to shrink yourself to make them comfortable. Family doesn't punish you for setting boundaries. Family doesn't enable abuse and then blame you for walking away. Real family shows up. Real family asks questions. Real family cares about the truth, not just the version of the story that makes them feel good. And maybe, just maybe, I was starting to build that kind of family. One person at a time. Saturday morning, I woke up without an alarm. No anxiety. No dread. No pit in my stomach wondering what fresh hell was waiting for me. Just the sun streaming through my window and the sound of birds outside. I made coffee and sat at my kitchen table. I opened my laptop and looked at my evidence folder one last time. 48 documents. 3 years of proof that I wasn't crazy. I thought about deleting it. But I didn't. Not because I thought I'd need it. But because it was a reminder. A reminder of what I'd survived. A reminder of how far I'd come. A reminder that I'd made the right choice, even when everyone told me I was wrong. I closed the laptop and finished my coffee. Then I got dressed, grabbed my keys, and headed out. I had a life to live. And for the first time in 3 years, I was actually looking forward to it. As I walked to my car, I thought about everything that had happened since that meeting. The calls. The texts. The emails. The pressure. The constant push to come back, to forgive, to move on. But I hadn't moved on. I'd moved forward. And there's a difference. Moving on means pretending it didn't happen. Moving forward means acknowledging it did and choosing not to let it define you. I wasn't pretending anymore. I wasn't forgiving people who weren't sorry. I wasn't accepting blame that wasn't mine. I was just living. Living a life where I didn't have to constantly defend myself. Living a life where my boundaries were respected. Living a life where peace wasn't contingent on other people's approval. And that life, quiet, ordinary, unremarkable, was the ultimate revenge. Because they'd tried to break me. And I was still standing. Not louder. Not angrier. Not more dramatic. Just standing. Steady. Calm. Unbothered. And that, more than any confrontation, any argument, any final word, was what drove them crazy. Because you can fight anger. You can dismiss tears. You can ignore accusations. But you can't fight someone who's simply gone. Someone who's opted out. Someone who's chosen peace over engagement. That's the quiet revenge. Not the explosion. The exit. I got in my car and started the engine. As I pulled out of my parking space, I glanced at my phone one last time. No new messages. No missed calls. Just silence. And I realized something. They weren't going to change. Linda wasn't going to apologize. My mother wasn't going to hold her accountable. My father wasn't going to stand up for me. Rachel wasn't going to see my side. None of it was going to happen. But that was okay. Because I didn't need it anymore. I didn't need their validation. I didn't need their approval. I didn't need them to admit they were wrong. I just needed to be free. And I was. I drove away from my apartment, toward the city, toward whatever came next. And for the first time in 3 years, I wasn't looking back. Not because I'd forgotten. But because I'd moved on. Not to where I was before. But to somewhere better. Somewhere quiet. Somewhere mine. They wanted me to break. They wanted me to react. They wanted me to explode so they could point to my anger as proof I was the problem. But I didn't give them that. I gave them nothing. Just silence. Just distance. Just the slow, steady realization that I was never coming back. And that was the quiet revenge.